Hello, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. So it's been about 7 or 8 months. So it's a good time to revisit with John Wade Boggs fan, whose background looks a little bit different than last time. But we did talk about what was going to happen. So we did see that forthcoming. But John,
Yep.
good evening. How are you?
Pretty good. Yourself?
I am doing well. I'm doing well. So I knew I was going to come back around. I'd reached out to you a couple of times. We were just going to figure out the timing, and we were able to get that set up tonight and
Yeah.
do a little recording and a chat, talking about a few different things that we're going to get a chance to talk about. So first of all, off the top, I want to congratulate you, 1,500 subscribers. That milestone just recently hit on your channel.
Yep. Thank you.
Absolutely. And link to John's channel is going to be in the description for everybody who checks us out after the fact. So check it out. And if you're not already subscribed, then subscribe. And we're going to talk about a few things related to some of the stuff that's going on the channel. Now, you do have a contest going on, so I'm
Yes.
probably going to get this uploaded the same night we're recording. If I am able to, then there'll be a day or two left. Do you want to give just the details on what's going on with that contest?
Yeah. Just as a thank you to everyone who's subscribed, I'm doing a contest, a video response contest where I want you, to the best of your ability, to pick your favorite card. If you can't pick one, then maybe a couple that have some special meaning to you for whatever reason. It's your most expensive card. It's the first card you had as a kid. You as a card someone gifted to you, but a card or maybe cards in your collection that are special to you, that if you had to sell everything, these are the one or ones that you'd want to hold on to because of a special reason. So I've loved hearing the stories. We've had the 35, I think, plus video responses so far. The deadline would be this coming Friday, midnight Eastern Standard Time. So when this gets posted, there'll be a day or two left. If you want to get entered, there'll be if you go to my channel, there'll be, look for the 1,500 subscriber contest. It'll have all the rules, and I'm giving away two eBay gift card prizes, random spinning wheel type of thing. But I just love hearing the stories of people have great collections, and some of them said, "Hey, it's a good opportunity for me to look through my cards again." We tend to get cards and store them or display them or whatever and forget about them and move on to the next purchase and stuff. And a lot of them said, "Hey, you know what? You know, I went through some of my cards and like rediscovered. Oh yeah, I remember this card and this was special for this." And so it's just a good exercise and something fun. So
Absolutely. And I think the exercise of self-reflection and looking at the collection, any excuse to go back and look through the collection you already have, I think is a good one,
yeah,
especially nowadays when people are being a little bit more selective with how they're passing out their hobby funds. So I
hmm
think it's a wise opportunity and it's a good chance for people to do that. One other thing I'll touch on then before we get into talking about one of the videos you did recently. One of the other things that you've done, it's been off and on just depending on scheduling and everything. You're still doing the, I guess I would call it a podcast. Is how do I want to put it? What would
Oh,
we term
the
this thing?
the the two guys one hobby.
Yeah, how do we what do we consider that? I don't know. I hesitate to call it a podcast. Is that what it
Yeah,
is?
it's
Like I
not a
don't know.
podcast because you can't find it. I'm not uploading it to
Sure.
Spotify
Yeah.
or anything like that. It's just a, I don't know, a little series that
Sure. Okay.
Don's Field of Dreams Cards and
Yeah.
I reached out to him. I wanted to do a little collaboration and show. I guess you can call it a show.
Okay.
And it's not on a separate channel or anything like that. We occasionally have a guest on talking about various different subjects. In fact, last night
Mhm.
we just recorded episode 13, so that'll be coming out this coming Sunday morning.
Mhm.
And I'll give you a preview. We had a great discussion on graded versus ungraded cards in your collection. And we
Okay.
had Jake Legends Never Die on.
Okay.
He's a big proponent of collecting ungraded cards, and there's reasons for
Yeah.
that. And we had a great back and forth in terms of pros and cons on both sides. It was a really, really nice discussion. So hopefully, people can check it out and enjoy it. I think you'll find, I think you'll find yourself saying, "Oh, well, that makes sense. Oh, well, that makes sense too." And I can see why you'd want to collect a graded card. Well, Jake, I can see why you'd want an ungraded card because of this and that. Really good discussion.
No, absolutely makes sense. I think it's also kind of funny about that, and I want to. I'm trying to remember if I mentioned this to you before, but I definitely talked to Jake about that previously. I've had a couple of communications with Jake, and it was just funny because he belonged. I think he still does. He belonged to a vintage card trading group called
Hmm.
Old Baseball Cards, so OBC for short.
Okay.
And I remember having a conversation with him briefly, and this is maybe a year ago, a while now. But when he made reference to it, I just kind of laughed. I reached out to him and I just, I asked, and then we chatted for a second, had a little quick back and forth, and I said, okay, when you get a little time, go to the website, go to the roster, go to the retired people, and go look up the name. I'm on there. Uh,
Yeah.
so I knew exactly what that group was. Although, given the sensibilities of that group, the non-grading thing makes total sense. Like it's very much on brand. I'll tell you because a lot of the guys collected a lot of. They'd rather have a hole in the card than a hole in the binder. Is the way that I'll put it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
there's pretty much quite a bit of that, which is perfectly fine, because the group was really good. But it's one of those things where I felt like once I was in a position where didn't feel like I could contribute properly, it was a good time to step away. But I was there for a while, mid '90s. So going back quite a ways that I was in there. So it's interesting that he's still part of that group as
Yeah.
far as where today. So I just thought it was funny since you brought him up. I was like, yeah, actually, I know I know a thing or two. I just thought it was very funny that but for his collecting sensibilities, that makes a lot of sense to me, and I think probably he'd be a good advocate for it. I'm in the camp of look collect however you want. Um, I don't think every card needs to be graded. I don't think that's necessary. I think
Mhm.
there is a time and a place, and I think there's a utility for it. And sometimes you can just do it for fun or as a challenge. My 63 Fleer set is in the registry, not because I
Mhm.
do the registry because I really don't have that many registry sets at all, uh,
Mhm.
but I just thought it would make it more interesting.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like a 63 Fleer, I can go and just pick them off. Like I think it's 67 cards in the checklist. It's not
Yeah.
that hard.
Yeah.
But I thought I would add a little element to it to add a little spice to make it a little
Yeah.
more interesting for me as the
Mhm.
collector to do it. That's
Yeah.
why I decided.
Well, 99% of my Wade Boggs cards, they're ungraded.
Yeah.
I don't collect and I don't plan on getting those graded. I have a few only because they were a low serial number card, and the seller happened to have it graded before he put it up for sale. I'm like, okay, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
It's graded. I'm like, okay, but I didn't like. Oh, great, it's a graded card. Or that I know another Bog super collector though that he is trying to, and I think he wanted to become number one on the registry for the Boggs Master Checklist. He's either there or in a close second, and so he's been purposely buying PSA copies. I don't know if he's sent any in to be graded, but he's always looking for graded Boggs cards, and that's his little project and focus. He wants to have a graded collection, be on the registry, get that top. Hey, I'm the biggest Boggs collector in terms of PSA, and say, hey, and that's fine. I'm fine with the ones I have that are ungraded. Um, so
Like who would do something just for ego or for to promote themselves? Like who would do such a it's
I don't know.
absurd. Absurd. Who
I
would do such a thing? Ridiculous. I always have props when the moment is right. When the moment is right, John. Always got it.
Yep.
That was my favorite thing. I picked up a bunch of these, got coasters,
Yeah.
and I basically was messing with one of my buddies to say, "Oh, I could put it in a coaster," and he thought I meant something else, and I go, "Boom!" Carlos Senior got a kick out of that one. I gave him a
Yeah.
couple of coasters, so they had a couple. My mom had me sign one, so she's going to frame one of those things.
Oh,
She
nice.
got a
Yeah.
kick out of it.
Yeah.
So no, that's good. I'm glad to hear, and I kind of listened to it. That's why I wanted to kind of define it with you. I wanted to figure out like what do we consider that? We consider a show. I think a
Yep.
show is fair. I think that's
Yep.
reasonable. So good. As long as you guys are enjoying it. I've had some fun doing. I would consider it a podcast because I do have an audio form. I do push it off to Spotify and stuff.
Mhm.
But it's been fun to have that as a way of just offsetting videos and things on the channel. We were talking about before we hit record, just coming up with the right recipe of things that make sense. Or like, I'm no shortage of ideas, but limited time. I've had fun doing the little walk through the Beckett's. We were chatting about that briefly. It's like right now that's been a really easy, straightforward thing that I can do that people
Mhm.
seem to be enjoying. And I'm like, wait, if you guys are enjoying it, then I'm happy to do it. It'll be a good complement to other things that I'm going to work on as well. So I'll still do those. But then,
Yep.
yeah, we can do this one as well. No issue with that. Easy
Yeah.
enough for me.
Yeah. And
So
we're
moving a
we're
little,
really loosey goosey on. I mean, we'll do maybe a show back to back weeks, but then we'll go 2 or 3 weeks before we do another one, and it's just based on our schedule. And so
yeah,
we're not trying to be dedicated. Like, okay, every Sunday we have to come up with an episode. Well, who are we going to find, and when can we do it, and this and that. It's when we get around to inviting someone. Hey, what's your schedule like? Hey, it doesn't work this week. Oh, well, we'll do it next week. And so it's just been late, and yeah.
I think it makes sense. Like I just like doing. Sometimes I like we've had a lot of the content discussion last time we got a chance to speak. I'll also, by the way, in the description, folks, I will link also our previous conversation because we had an extensive conversation of content and a lot of different elements of that. And if you guys are want to refresh your memory on that, we can certainly do that without rehashing all the same ground. But we
Yep.
definitely it is something I do think about on a regular basis, and more than anything, I want to make it interesting for me. And that's really a key. Like I'll keep doing it as long as I can find ways and angles to make it interesting. The
Mhm.
Beckett thing is actually really easy, but at the same time, I can see why some people would enjoy it. So I'm happy to do it because then they can enjoy it, and then hopefully they enjoy some of the other stuff that I'll come up with as well. And I'll have these collector conversations, and I'll have the podcast that I'm doing now, and then the live stream is its own beast. That's the only thing that's like scheduled. It's kind of
Yeah.
locked in the calendar every week, and I
Yep.
find ways. We figure out a way to make sure it happens every week.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's kind of a part of the menu that we have to make sure we include. That's standard.
Oh yeah.
Now,
Friday night. Yep.
mhm, absolutely. Well, what's going to be interesting is the week of the expo. The expo. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do the Friday night. What's
Mm.
going to happen though is I've already kind of made tentative plans to do a special Tuesday night special. So I
Okay.
mentioned it
Well,
briefly,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
there will be one. It'll be a truncated version of it, and if I can swing it, I will do a Friday night. But it will also be truncated. So you
Yep.
may get two shorter live streams as opposed to the one long one. But one way or the other, we're going to have a live stream that week because I like to make sure that I still have one since October 2020. Like it's almost going
Wow.
on 3 years. 3 years.
Wow. Wow. That's
There's
great.
been one every week, whether it's been on Friday or other day of the week. There's been one live stream on the channel every single week for more than 3 years.
Wow. That's
We don't want to
impressive.
break the streak, John. We don't
Yeah.
want to break the
No.
streak. Like right now, the streak's going. The Cal Ripken
Yeah.
streak. We're adding
Yep.
to it. We're going. So I don't know what the previous number was, but look, we got a streak going, and we're just going to keep going as
Yep.
long as we reasonably can. So at the moment, we still can. So I have to think ahead a little bit, knowing that that's coming.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. You have to figure. Okay. Now wait a minute. And now, how? And you've still been able to do it over the summers with everyone's like vacations. Well,
I do it on the
see, you
summer.
had the
I did
benefit that.
Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, John. 2 straight years, Christmas
Right.
Eve and New Year's Eve. Your holidays mean nothing to me.
well, well, where I was going is, but you have a fairly decent enough guest pool that if one can't show up, you may only have two guests or three guests, or if someone
Mhm.
can come on. So
Yeah.
that also helps that
Oh, yeah.
you have a little bit of a larger core for your group
Mhm.
that would allow, hey, I'm not feeling well, or I'm going on vacation, or this or whatever, I can't make it that Friday. You have other people to fill in and still have a nice group discussion.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's sometimes we'll have the bigger group, but we always try to have there's Eric has been very good about being available to do those. He's done them from hotel rooms. He's done them from hotel room bathrooms, which was very entertaining, very unintentionally amusing. But it's one of those things where if he wasn't able to, then I'd reach out and I talk to, we've had folks from the community be there. I joke about it. Mike Baseball Collector's been there mostly when he has to answer for something or to speak to something in particular, but inadvertently he's been a guest. Andy, she blind me the refractors, and a variety of other Amish Dave Archer, Steve, Bronco 79. There's been a variety of different folks from different walks that I've been able to reach out to that have been able to join in. So I think that helps. It helps a lot to kind of reach out into the Rolodex, which is built up over time to be able to like, hey, would you be willing to come on and chat on this? And
Yep.
usually people can. So it's been good. So let's talk about something not quite so good. See a little
Okay.
little segue here.
All right.
We about a month ago, you had a video about the lament of the player collector. We
Mhm.
one of the other topics we got to talk about here a little bit. Uh, do you want to give like a quick high level thesis behind what were you experiencing at the time that prompted you to have this discussion at that time?
Yeah, what prompted me was I was behind in my Wade Boggs checklist. Now,
Mhm.
I realize I'm coming from a position of s- super collector, but more of like a completist collector. Okay, so I'm
Yes, the
I'm a
sickness.
player
The
collector.
sickness is the word we're looking for. The sickness.
Sickness is the word. Yes. So
Mhm.
I realize I'm coming from a slightly different angle, and maybe some of my points didn't necessarily come across to maybe the average player collector. But my mindset at the time was I was behind in my Boggs checklist. And
Mhm.
I always make sure that I want to keep it up to date just so I know it's out there, knowing that I can't get everyone that's out there.
Yeah.
And I was going through checklists after, adding cards from this set and that set. And I get to the Donruss sets, the Leaf sets, and other ones, and I'm like entering like 20, 30 different parallels. It's this color, this pattern, this animal, this. I'm like, oh my lord! And then if it's not a parallel, it's, oh, hey, he has an autograph. Okay, well, there's like three versions. It's at a 10, 5, and 1. I'm like, okay, good luck getting those. We're having to pay $100 or $75 or something for an autograph card. And it just kept the thoughts just kept going like, man, I'm still going to collect Bogs, but it's not like it was back in the day
Mhm.
where, if you wanted to do a rainbow, you may had to find 6 cards.
Mhm.
Like the rainbow consists of maybe 5 or 6 different colored parallels. Some are even maybe like 3 or 4. Now to collect a rainbow, you're talking about maybe 10, 15, 20, 30 different parallels. And all it is a different color border or a shiny this border or background or something. And
Mhm.
some of them are like, I had to call out Leaf because they're the biggest offender. Um, Such low serial numbers. I mean, it's
Mhm.
it's it's ridiculous. So to try to find them, and then you're also up against some other
So you're suggesting
false
Leaf would have
collectors.
numerous parallels? That would be awful. That's not even a thing. What are we talking
Yeah,
about?
but think of that time, triple that.
Yeah.
So
These are
you
just
have,
one of ones. I
yeah,
specifically took an image that these are
okay,
just the one of ones. The two top ones are two different colors,
gotcha. And then the printing plates,
and
yeah,
then the printing plates. That's right.
yeah. So it was a little frustrating, disheartening
Mhm.
of just like, man, and I've long since come to the realization that I'm not going to get every box card out there. So I mean
Right.
that wasn't the question of like, oh my gosh, it's now suddenly impossible for me to get every card. Okay,
Mhm.
that wasn't it. But it's the low pop of everything. Even Topps products. He'll be in the flagship. He'll have the 35th anniversary stuff and the All-Star and a relic that's not very expensive, and the parallels aren't too bad. That's fine. But then they throw him in, Dynasty, Tier 1, this and that, the high-end product. So the autographs are like at the most out of 10 or most out of 5, all the one of ones. And even when you do see them pop up on eBay, all right, so someone buys a box of maybe 4 cards for $400, and they
Mhm.
pull a Boggs Auto, and that's their biggest card. And I'm like, hey, I want to get $399.99 for it. Or like you're crazy. And even had some of my Boggs collectors say, hey, I offered 150, and they said, well, no, I have more. And like, and it's just becoming more and more frustrating because when they do come to the secondary market, people are trying to get their money back and think Boggs is Ripken. Boggs
Right.
is not Ripken in the hobby. Um, and so it was just that type of frustration. I said, you know what, I want to do a video about this and how that may affect player collectors in the future. Now I understand there are some going to be some player collectors just like set collectors in the future.
Mhm.
But they may not be try to be as completist as I've been in my Boggs collection. So that all the different parallels and stuff may not bother them as
Mhm.
much as it frustrates me.
No, I think that's fair. That's the reason why I wanted to broach it is because, as you mentioned, as a player collector, I commiserate in a lot of ways. I shared that picture because Leaf has been. I had when I saw the checklist and saw that it had two one of ones that were just the different foil. It was the green Canadian exclusive,
Okay.
which was found in the U.S. because of course it was, and then the gold one of one. And I remember the irritation that I had with that. That's what led to my frustration. I think I mentioned it to you the last time we spoke. It led to my frustration where when it came to the silver spectrum, whatever, the two of two, out
Mhm.
of spite, I bought both
Yeah.
just so that no one could have the out of two either. Just like, you
Yeah.
know what? If I have to do this idiocy, you know what? Nobody gets the out of two. So I got both the one of ones and both the out of twos and a couple of the printing plates, and screw you all.
Yep.
At that point, it's just bitterness and spite, just a lot of bitterness and spite.
Yeah.
So I understand, I do. But yeah, it creates a bit of frustration. I'd have what was funny though is when you made the video, I had already, I won't say resigned myself because I kind of just accepted it as the different um, changes happen in the way that the industry and the manufacturers did, because I had started collecting Medano before the one of one.
Hmm.
I had already been collecting, but as soon as the one of one came out, well, that's the end of completion. We're done. Like this
Yeah.
conversation's over, because as soon as somebody else has one of ones, nobody can be complete. As soon as I've got one and you've got one, neither one of us will ever be complete unless we do this Highlander style. Unless we,
Yeah.
that's basically what we have to do. Um, so then it became, okay, let me just figure out what's the combination of things
Hmm.
that work for me. In your case, it was a certain percentage of the checklist and such. Um, when it comes to Leaf, I just think they do so much stuff that a lot of times it does turn me off a little bit. That particular one I did chase after because I wanted to complete the rainbow to the best of my ability. And I
Hmm.
was able to. I completed the rainbow with the two one of ones, silly as that is, and two of the four printing plates. There's two more out there. I may come across them at some point, but I'm pretty close. That's
Yeah.
not half bad.
Yep.
Buddy of mine found this one here. This is a recent pickup here. So we
Oh,
got the Leaf there. It's a nice looking card.
that's
But
pretty.
there's like
Yeah.
5 or 6 different versions of this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to kill myself over that. But that's cool. Like, to be honest, I'm happy to have it.
Hmm.
Great. And if I pick up one or two more, that's wonderful. But I got other fish to fry. There's
Yeah.
plenty of other stuff already going on, and they make more every year that goes by.
Hmm.
Um, but one thing I did notice that you touched on there that I agree with you as well is I think some of the manufacturers, the way they've done it is because they'll short print some of these so much. Um, it actually inflates the relative price of the item relative to what it would be normally in the past. And what I mean by that is, even with the short printing, because it's a new product, and to your point about the person opening the box, what I found in Upper Deck is the hockey exclusive brand that we have for hockey.
Hmm.
Um, they'll put a Medano in there, and it'll be like a Medano autograph out of 10. I've bought Medano autographs out of 10 in the past, and I might pay 50 or $60. He was a Hall of Famer, but he was a Hall of Famer at that time too. But then I'll
Hmm.
look at the new one and it'll be like the minimum that I'll be able to get it is for like 100 and change. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, but it's an autograph out of 10. I have like 50 autographs out of 10.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's on card. All of them are on card. I've
Yeah.
got the sticker and the on card. Which would tell you what if it's $200, I'll sell you mine because
Yep.
I have a bunch of them.
It's the law of diminishing returns, at least for me. Because again,
Yeah.
I've been collecting bogs for 25 years. So my interest in another bogs, I don't care what the serial number is or whether it's on card
Mhm.
auto, hey, where there's a fancy patch to it, I can go back there and say, here's 20 of them just like it. Like,
Yeah.
okay, why do I need that 21st? Yeah, I like bogs. Again, I want to collect bogs, but at this point, having like just under 5,500 different and
Mhm.
10,000 total, the additional card is not like I'm not gonna like overpay for an autograph out of 25, whether it's on card or not, when I have so many of them already. I mean, yeah, it's a different design. Okay, well, that's a cool design, but I have many cool design cards as well. So for me, it's that law of diminishing returns when people think, hey, but it's a Boggs, he's Hall of Famer, he's this, is that. I'm like, I understand, but I paid half of what you're asking for all these. So why should I
Mhm.
pay double?
Yeah. And to your point, though, it also, the diminishing return point, I think, is a valid one because, um, yeah, technically speaking, we don't need another one. It's more like a nice to have rather than a need.
Hmm.
So when I showed this card, I didn't even say what the serial number was because what's the point? But like if people wanted to know, this particular variant is the out of five, which is a pretty solid, that's pretty
Yeah.
good. But the thing is, they've also got an out of three, they've got an out of two, an out of one, they've got an out of seven, an out of eight, and like
Yeah.
so if I wanted to complete the rainbow of this, I'm back to very similar to what I just talked about a minute ago. This is from the newer set, which is great. And again, the patch pieces on this, all game use, these are
Yeah.
this very nice, and they've got some nice patch pieces on here. And luckily, I have friends who looked out for me and picked this up and sent it my way.
Hmm.
Fantastic, sensational.
Yes.
I didn't have to kill myself to
Yeah.
go track it down. Um, but yeah, if I go to the expo and I see something like that, I'm probably not going to offer much. And it's not because the card's not good. It's just the need isn't there, and
Hmm.
there's other things that I consider to be higher priority. So for me, the way that I've gotten around this problem, that kind of what we're talking about here, is I put in hierarchy of preference if I'm going to spend my dollars, the 90s stuff. and playing days will always get priority. You
Hmm.
show me an equivalent 90s or playing days card, and you say this $200 for this card, or a
Yeah.
brand new one that is, out of five or whatever, but it's $200.
Yep.
We're going with the playing days 90s one because that checklist is smaller. And
Yeah.
I've been chipping away at it, and it's down to the very last little bit. So like
Hmm.
the value of each one goes up exponent. I want to track it down because it's like, oh, I want that one. I want
Yep.
that one.
Yep. If I come across a card that fills in a hole from earlier part, not necessarily when it was Bog's playing days, but if
Sure.
it's um because I have some near complete, and I guess you could technically call them rainbows or whatever. Um, but certain sets where I'm like, man, or some oddly tough parallels that are out of like 100.
Mhm.
Today, parallel out of 100. Well, okay, what, you maybe Pete, $12? No, no. Some of those 90s inserts that are out of 100 are sneaky hard to find. And so,
Yes.
yeah, if I come across the Donruss something that's the serial number parallel out of 100 and you don't see them very often, yeah, I'll go after that.
Absolutely.
But
That's it.
but am I gonna worry about a black parallel from 2023 tops that's out of 100 and someone wants 15 bucks for it? I'm like, "For parallel of 115 bucks? No, I'll give you 5 bucks for it."
Mhm.
I'm not gonna, say, I'll take it. Here's my money. Just I want the card. But I would do it for, let's say, that 90 insert or 2000 insert
Mhm.
where they're sneaky tough.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the ones that became a little bit of an issue for me, and I promise, folks, it won't be just player collection talk, but obviously this is kind of subject matter area that we have some expertise in. So we got to talk a little shop as part of
Yep.
the discussion. Kind of playing into the vein of what you're talking about. This is one of the ones that'll be coming in the upcoming mail day. Our friends at Pacific in
Mm.
that late 90s, early 2000 period,
Oh,
a lot of those parallels have kind of fallen through the cracks. So this is Pacific Paramount. This is 99 2000 Paramount. This is the premiere date. So this
yes.
is number 50 of 50, which is kind of cool. That's great. Bookend card. But the
Mhm.
point is the out of 50, big deal. The thing is, these don't come up all the time anymore.
Nope.
They've kind of disappeared and snuck away quite a bit. So when I saw it, I was like, I must have that.
Yes.
So that one I'm going to put a little bit more effort to get my hands on. Oh, but out of 50, it's like I just showed you a card out of five. And by the way, I can go on eBay and buy three
Yep.
right now. But that one out of 50, believe it or not, it's only once in a blue moon that I'll see it.
Mhm.
And I haven't had the chance to buy one in a while. So when this one came up, I was like, boom, got to scoop it up.
Yep.
And I've had a few this last couple of weeks that I've been able to fall into that category
Good.
that are a little bit tougher. And the serial number wouldn't give you the indicator of just how difficult it has been for me to track one down.
Yep, yep, yeah. Pacific had those opening date for like premiere date, platinum blues.
Mhm.
Sometimes those are really hard to find, and some of them may not even be serial numbered, but because of the insert rate. And again, we're talking about cards back in the day that parallels were new, serial numbering was just starting out. Not everything and not every insert was serial numbered like it
Yeah.
seems to be today. um, and so some of these really tough parallels aren't even serial numbered, but they may have a stated print run of
Yeah.
X. But you couldn't tell by looking at it. I was like, well, here's just a regular card. Some of them, I'm sure, are sitting in people's collections in a 5,000 count box, and they may not even think it's even worth throwing on eBay if
Yeah.
they don't know what they had. Like, oh yeah, I bought a bunch of product back then and stuff, and yeah, they're in 5,000. It doesn't pay to put them on eBay, and they
Mhm.
could have some of these sneaky little parallels that they may not know the worth on, but
I will say,
they haven't made it to the secondary market.
absolutely. I will say, kind of a good example of that, because he's got his book that just came out. I want to say Jim Cramer, the guy who founded Pacific.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so Kramer has actually been making the rounds now, doing some podcasts and different things. He actually wrote a book,
Hmm.
kind of a memoir book, talking about his time building up the Pacific Company. And in a lot of the discussions that he's had, he has indicated that one of the tougher ones, one of the sneaky tough ones that the player collectors have kind of figured out, but he was good to have him confirm, kind of what we suspected. I think they're the retail Reds. For a lot of the years, the Reds are
The
actually
Prism
they're
Red.
not
Oh
serial numbered
yeah.
at all. They're not
Yep.
serial numbered at all, but they're retail exclusive. And he said, as a guy who actually has kept some of his own material, he collects his own stuff, which, good on him, all good.
Mhm.
He even has found difficulty finding the red. If the guy who owned the card manufacturer is telling you that the red is difficult, that
Yep.
probably is a hint that it is a very difficult one. And
I have
in my
I forget
checklist,
what
I find
year.
that to be true. It's holding up for me based on personal experience trying to track those cards down.
Yeah. It may be 2000 Pacific, wherever, but I do have one of the reds. And again, at first I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, I have the red." And then when I mentioned it to some of the other bugs, they're like, "Wait a minute, you have the red? You have the red?" I'm like,
Mhm,
"Yeah, yeah, I have it." "How'd you get the red?" I'm like, "Well," oh, and then I looked into it, I'm like, "Oh, okay, that one is sneaky tough."
mhm.
I don't know how I came across it. It was very, very early on, but yeah, I have one of the reds from one of the years, but
Yeah, and the thing is, at the time, you wouldn't have even thought about it because,
no.
yeah, it's retail exclusive, but at the time, again, you think, oh, well, they made tons of that stuff. But the problem is, it just never made it into the market. I'm
Yeah.
sure there is some sitting in boxes, as you said, but again, it was good to get confirmation from a
Mhm.
person who would know the relative print runs of this stuff to say, like, yeah, we didn't actually make that many. It's not actually like there's not a hidden stash somewhere where somebody's got 10,000 of them.
It's not like you would get a red in every pack or every other pack.
Yeah.
Like some of the inserts back then were, okay, "Oh, hey, I got a silver border." Okay,
Mhm.
well, yeah, that comes one in every 3 packs. Okay, well, that's not tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were sneaky tough.
Yeah, so there's it's stuff like that, but you only pick up those nuances as you start diving into the checklist and kind of learn. You'll pick it up over time, and again, it's nice to have the confirmation, but
Mhm.
we kind of picked that up. Like after a while, it became because not even Medano. I have other friends who are super collectors of other players, and if we are our players are contemporaries of each other, and you're having trouble finding that one, I'm having trouble finding that one. After a while, we start putting two to two together and go, "Hey, wait a minute! It's not just a you problem or a me problem; it's a us problem."
Mhm.
And okay, now right in the '90s, we started putting some of those pieces together. In the early days of the message boards, we talk, we communicate. Since we're not
Yeah.
collecting the same player, it was very logical for us to communicate and be like, "Well, what are you having trouble finding? I'm having trouble finding these and this
Yep.
one, and
Yep.
that's where you're
And it
having some difficulty."
it's funny, we talk about the modern cards and the short prints and all that stuff, yet there's so many of them that, again, and out of 5, you
Mhm.
can find 3 others out there out of 5. Yet if you talk to player collectors where their player, was in sets in the mid-90s, and you mentioned the 96 Select Certified Mirror Gold out of 30,
Mhm.
if they have one, they go, "I have one," or I'll never be able to afford one of those. The like, you would think, again, today out of 30,
Mhm.
just a no autograph, no jersey, no patch, it's just a colored parallel out of 30.
Mhm.
They are, for players, again, that have played in that mid-90s, that's probably, if not the expensive, one of the most expensive cards for that player, the 96 Select Certified Mirror Gold.
Mhm. Yeah, no, 100%. Those ones became very difficult to come by, and that's one where I have a little bit of fun though because I want to say I'm trying to remember. I can actually I'll confirm it here at some point when we're talking. I'll go over the Z Folio, but I bet I got a couple of things sitting in a couple of those Z Folios. I'll pull them out. But no, I agree with you. Like it became clear after a while which ones were the tough ones, and if you do follow and you've got players with equivalent checklists, you can kind of figure it out pretty
Mhm.
quickly. So let me ask you kind of this question. So we'll still play off of the topic itself because, like I said, the video I think made some very valid points. It is going to be more resonant, I think, with a completionist or completionist style
Yes.
collector.
Mhm.
Um, because I think I talk about with my Brett Favre cards, I'll pronounce it nicely for other people here, incorrectly, I might
Yeah.
add. There is a correct pronunciation with more syllables, but
Mhm.
for now, I'll give you the short version. Um, I'm a lot more picky when it comes to that one, but it's fun for me because I get to do a deep dive and I get to seek out some of the inserts that, based on ratio, are actually sneaky tough. They're not
Mhm.
serial numbered, but they're tougher than you would think,
Mhm.
given what the difficulty it is, because maybe the checklist is big. Oh, these are like one in every couple of boxes. Yeah, but there's 100 in the checklist, or there's 50 in the checklist.
Yes.
So you'd have to open a ton of boxes with perfect correlation to get one. So it's
Mhm.
actually sneaky tough.
Yeah. Yep, and that's what it was back in the, the mid 90s for that select product. Okay, that parallel is serial numbered out of 30. Well, normally that wouldn't be a problem, but when you think the total population, this was during, I mean, I don't know how many select cards were produced, but there was a ton.
The other
And
key
so when
also
you
is that the
have
Select was a higher end product
it
a
was a
lot,
higher end
especially.
product, so it wasn't as much as the base Score product because it was
Mhm,
an offshoot of Score. So Score was their flagship. So they printed a ton of it. Select was a higher end product, but there was still a lot of it.
mhm.
And so when you have a lot of product and I think with the Select Certified, I'm trying to think there. I think there was a limited checklist. Oh, there you go.
So right there, the testament how long I've had this stuff, that literally in
Yeah.
the Z folio. So there's the mirror gold, there's your
Ah,
mirror red, and there's your mirror blue. There's
yep.
your blue, there's your red, there's your artist proof, and there's your base. I literally just put it on page, but it pops on the page.
Ooh. Oh, nice.
So it's like,
Yeah.
but I joke with a buddy of mine that I go, that's how you know you've had a collection, you've done it too long. It's like it is the mirror gold, but it's like, yeah, but I put it in the Z folio with the other ones.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. I've
Yeah.
had a- I've been very fortunate. I'll put it this way. A lot of it is just good timing. That's why I say I don't. What I joke about it, but at the same time, it's like I'm not going to give myself too much credit. Half of it's just good timing, right place, right time. It just so
Mhm.
happened I had my eyes open to those possibilities, and when I saw the opportunity, I seized on it. I didn't hesitate.
Mhm.
Um, there's a lot of those ones where there's other times where that I've missed a couple that now are the bane of my existence. I had opportunities, but I missed them. So the mirror gold in that one, I've got a nice set of those mirrors. They look beautiful right beside each other. They look proper the way they should in a nice display there. But um, there's a run for the cup, 96, 97 Black Diamond run for the cup. It is numbered to 100. It's an insert with like an acetate cutout, which it looks kind of neat and everything,
Yep.
especially for the era. But the last one sold for like $660. And it was like, I was like, ooh, ooh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, I might have to, I might have to take up a couple more sponsors, John. I might have
Yeah.
to like see about some additional sponsors. If if I've got the different what's the GoDaddy, a couple
Yep.
of the just general pick your favorite sponsor, Audible. Maybe I'll just take them all. The
Yeah.
Fanatics Overlords. I'll put a nice spot there for them. Anything that, yeah, let's go
Hey,
for it.
maybe this would be a good time to plug your beer coasters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I might have to sell a bunch of these coasters just to make it work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but that was I wasn't surprised because there's been a renaissance in the 90s. There's been a very much a renaissance.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that puts a lot of attention on it, which in turn raises the prices.
Mhm.
Good for the seller, not great for the person who still needs to scratch it off the checklist.
Yeah.
So that's one that
Plus
bad
plus
timing.
they're grading them now,
They
which
are.
may get into a different, the topic, but not only are they finding them, but now they're grading them. If it gets anywhere between a 9 or a 10, now they're asking even more for it because, "Hey, here's this rare insert, and
Mhm.
look at the grade, and now I want this for it." And as a collector, you're like, "Oh, great." So it'd be one thing if it was just ungraded and I could find it and still maybe have to pay a lot. But now that it's graded, it has
Mhm.
that like, oh gosh. So
Well, but it's one of those things. But that's why I say though, in the same vein that one is just unfortunate. If I am going to get it, I'm going to have to pony up. Like obviously, clearly. Um, Same vein though, same kind of era. 1999 UD Choice, the StarQuest Golds. Those are also out of 100, and a
mhm.
lot of people chase after those ones. I got that back 15 years ago off a dealer table for $60.
Ooh, yeah.
No problem. But obviously, it is a very difficult. And now those ones sell for $500 or $600 every time they go up. So sometimes you gotta you take the wins with a lot like that one. Nailed it. Seized the opportunity, no problem, deal done. The
Yep.
other ones, I missed a couple of different times that I could have bought it, where maybe it was $100 or maybe 100 and change. And if I had just ponied up the money at the time, it would be off the checklist and I wouldn't even have to worry about it. and
Yep.
now I'll just have to wait for my opportunity, or wait for the Fanatics Overlords to come in with the big cash prize.
Yeah.
One of
Well,
the other.
like the precious metal gems.
Yes.
I have, the ones that have 50 are like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, I have the little rainbow of it's a 98
Mhm.
metal, where I have the gem, the precious metal gem, and the gem master, the one of one. I have like
Oh,
all
right.
three versions. And when I
Nice.
show them off, like, yeah, some collectors' jaws drop. And again, I got them back then. I mean, it's not just I
Mhm.
bought them now, I found them now. I bought them again 15, 20 years ago, where whenever they first came out, I was on eBay, and when I saw one, I snatched it. So
Yeah.
that was the good, lucky
Yeah, right,
purchase.
right
Okay.
place, right time. It's like
Yeah.
that's why I say like I can't take credit for stuff like that. Sometimes it's like, yeah, okay, I had the opportunity and I took advantage of it.
Yep.
But that's where having multiple players, like I said, I've got my main player collection, but like I said, I do collect Favre, and he's got a ton of cards and a ton of sets. In the '90s, he was the guy. He won
Right.
3 straight MVPs, so he was like in every significant set. Funny enough, Medano does not have a precious metal gem.
Mm.
The era that they did the metal, they did not have the parallel in it. So I
Ah,
was completely spared that entire thing.
yeah.
But obviously Favre has them, and if you want to get one of those, that's thousands of dollars, no
Mhm.
matter what. It's a pretty penny. But again, you'll have a little bit of both. It's a mixed bag. I have that, and then I have the buddy of mine reached out to me, and they were able to get me one of the Pacific proofs. It was like an acetate card, proof card.
Yep.
I shared it on my Instagram with a little story and everything. But here's the thing: one of the other guys that my player collecting buddies, he went and posted on it. Goes, I've been looking for that thing for almost 30 years for my players. Like I've never even seen one, and it's like because they're impossible. I wasn't even completely convinced it existed because it's like I
Yeah.
don't even see one. Like
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
show me one, show me a
Yep.
picture of one, um, and now I own it, and it's kind of sits right about here.
Mm.
So it sits right there in the in the display. It sits that one because that one's a ghost.
Yeah.
That's the only one that I'm aware of it exists.
Mm.
I'm sure there's out there, but it's probably hiding with the Reds.
Yeah.
Somebody's box. They got them all.
Yep.
But as we say, right time, right place. Opportunity was presented to get my hands on it. Took advantage of it. But then, yeah, there's other stuff that I just either won't find or maybe the opportunity won't present itself, and just kind of live with it.
Yep.
Makes sense. Now, let me ask this question. Kind of in the same vein. I think it kind of answered me though. The Gem Masters would definitely qualify as one. Um, in the same vein as kind of that one there that I kind of referenced a moment ago. And if I can find a picture to zoom in on it, I will. But is there any other Boggs cards that you have that it doesn't even have to be the rarity because a one of one is kind of a one of one. It's its own deal.
Yeah.
Uh, we're talking obscure, like obscure in the sense that the other members of the Boggs Trust are like, oh, okay, that one is, yeah, you know, that's a toughie.
Yeah. The Donruss Crusade Red, out of 25
It's a
from
good one.
98,
I think it's
97.
about right.
I'm forgetting my years. The Fleer starting nine. So it was the insert of the 63 Fleer design.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
And it's or no, I'm sorry. That one was because those are numbered to those may be numbered to 63. No, it's the
Okay.
Fleer Tradition starting nine. So it has the blue foil, and you flip it over, and it's starting nine out of nine.
Okay, now I gotcha.
You don't see them very often at all. And so when I
Mm,
show that one off, they're like, "Wow, you have one of those." And then the other one, and I was thinking of it. Um, that was sneaky tough. Oh, in that same Fleer Tradition. Now, this
mhm,
isn't a high dollar card,
right.
but it's a bugger to find.
Mhm.
Is the White Rose Parallel. And what's
Okay.
hard about the White Rose Parallel is it's a slightly different foil, but it only came in a package of like a Matchbox car of a
Okay.
Tampa Bay. It was for the double rays,
Okay.
and for other parallels may have had other, and it was like a truck or something like that in the
Mm,
Devil Rays colors and it had the different Devil Rays players. There may have been cards of other teams, maybe not just the Devil Rays, but if you turn the back, the manufacturer was White Rose Collectibles or something like that.
Mhm.
And it has either a different card number than the base or a slightly different foil color. So the
Gotcha.
only way to get that card was to buy that car.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't from a pack or whatever. And I finally found one on its own, and I only picked that up maybe 3, 4 years ago. I
Okay.
actually do have the intact package with the car.
Mhm.
And there was one point I'm like, I don't care about the car. I want the card. Do I take it? Do I like? I'm like, no, no. I'm going to keep it as it is. I will
I was gonna
find
say.
my
Yeah.
in the wild card
Mhm.
because you search eBay and it just says, oh, 1998 Flair Tradition, and
Yeah.
they don't say the card number because it is a different card number.
Mhm.
They don't say what the card number is, and they don't show a picture of the back. It's a the Flair Tradition is a common card.
Sure.
So people aren't going to worry about scanning the front and back of the card. They're like, hey, and if they offer it for $2 and $4 shipping, you're like, okay, But and when I found it, I think I paid less than $10, but I had to search, and I got lucky
Yeah.
that it was just listed as a Flair Tradition, and they had the picture on the back, and it was like card number 7 as opposed to something else. I'm like, there it is, and I hit buy it now.
Mhm.
And then I did a video, and I'm like, I finally got it's not worth much, but from a player collector and a completist, I was missing that one. And they are not easy to find because they weren't in packs.
Right. Well, I think I had the same issue with and I think in baseball they had the similar issue. Some of the early upper decks, they had the variations on the hologram on the back. So the problem is it's the same kind of issue.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the card looks identical. You have to really pay attention. Like I was able to show. I found a dealer who obviously knew what they had, and they said, "No, this is the one. I'll sell you this one." So I was able to buy a couple. It was from the same dealer. The same dealer, of course, had actually figured it out and
Yeah.
flipped them around so you could see. Because you'd have one that had the baseball hologram, you had another one that had like the other year hologram, and a couple
Yep.
of these weird variants.
And one of them, yeah, I think had like a baseball had a hockey, or yeah, there was one where it was upside down or something,
Yeah,
which is the wrong hologram.
that's right.
Uh, Funny you mention that because it was one of the nationals. It was maybe I think it was 2019 in Chicago, and I
It's
knew
every year in
I had just
Chicago, John. Don't you know it's in Chicago forever?
yes, forever. Yes, yes. Never to be in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But uh, I had it, and I became aware of this hologram error, and it was
Yeah.
from a oh gosh 92 upper deck or something. Again, it wasn't
There was
a
a couple of there was a couple different ones. Again, hockey has a different thing, but
yep,
Upper Deck had this issue with a couple of different year in the early years. This was
yep,
fairly early 90s stuff for them.
yep. So I went to a table, and it was they had stuff by player, and I'm like, okay, here's some box cards, and I just started thumbing through.
Mhm.
And this was like it was like I forget, it was cheap. All right. They were
Mhm.
just commons. So I'm going through, and here's this upper deck, and I turn it over, and I go, "Ooh, oh, oh," and I found one,
Mhm.
right? And I think it was like every card in there was like, I swear, like 10 cents. It was like a 10-cent box.
Mhm.
And so I go, I'm like, okay. And I go to this guy, and he says, yeah, I like this. And he goes, so I go to get like try to find $1 in my pocket. It's like I have like fives or tens or 20s, whatever. And he says, is this all you want? I'm like, yeah, I just want that one. He goes, yeah, you can have it. He's like, are you sure? I'm
Mhm.
like, he goes, it's like it was 10-cent card. I'm like, thanks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I finally found this. It was sort of an error, it was not a scheduled parallel, but it was an error because of the hologram. And I'm like, yeah, I checked it off my list and happened to find it in a 10-cent box.
Yeah. But to your point though, that's the problem with that particular one is that the card is otherwise identical. You literally have to, and not only do you have to look at the hologram, ideally you have to point a light at it at an angle that makes it easy enough to read and see what
Yes.
you're looking at, because a couple of them, like in the video I was able to show it, but I had to go out of my way to angle the light in such a way where it's like, look, the only way you're gonna be able to see what I'm talking about is I'm gonna have to tilt it a little bit for you, move it around, and then point the light right at it so you can really see what I'm talking about. Because otherwise, I think one of them is literally it'll have a 91, but it'll be the number 91 kind of floating in space a couple of different times,
Yeah.
and you have to angle it. Otherwise, you can't see it, the damn thing.
Yeah,
It's impossible.
that's why I have a little sticky note on my top loader on the back of it says, "This is the, hologram
Yeah.
error." Because
Yeah.
if not, I'd be like, "Oh, well, why is that card in here? Let me just put," like, it yeah.
Yeah, those. Believe it or not, they comprise from my early '90s list. That error is like 3 or 4 different cards
Mhm.
for me, and it's very irritating. It is very stupid, and it is one of the most annoying things because it's like even when it's time to go looking for it, like how am I going to look for that? What are
Right.
we talking about?
Well, here's another one. 1991 tops. The backs, some of them are glow in the dark.
Mhm.
Well, what are you gonna do at a card show? Say, "Hey, can you turn the lights off? Let me get my black light and see if it glows."
We're
But
having a
you
rave,
literally
of course. Pitch it,
yeah.
John. Pitch the rave. Let's go.
But literally, I had because that's really the only to see you see it under black light,
Yeah.
and I'm like, so I actually bought a black light, and I went through my cards, and I still have some of the different. There's a dark ink where you see the Topps logo on the back more prominently than others. Um, there's the glow in the dark, and then there's another one. And of course, Boggs has like 2 or 3 cards in that set. So of course, there's
Mhm.
each one has those 3 different things, and I don't have all of them. And then occasionally you'll see 91. If you do a search, 91 Tops glow in the dark, and they want I don't not a huge amount of money for them, but I'm like, yeah, maybe one day I'll pay to fill in the gaps there. But just again, another weird, quirky little error, if you want to call it, or variation.
Yeah.
Again, for
The
us
the problem is that
completists,
the problem is that it's an acknowledged variation.
yeah,
If it's sufficiently acknowledged that it's counted as part of these checklists, it
mhm,
becomes a bit of a pain that way.
yeah,
But I think to be and by the way, this segment is called the sickness. This is the segment that pretty much defines the sickness. So if you're curious
yes,
about what the sickness is,
this,
the
yep,
last several minutes should make clear what that is. Now you know how to identify it. You're welcome.
yes,
Um, but just speaking in that vein, just looking at the checklist here for the because I've got it broken up in 5-year chunks for his playing days just to make my life easy so I can gauge my progress relative
mhm,
to these different areas. For the first 5 years, I'm down to 9 cards total.
oof,
It's
nice,
9 cards. And out of the ones that are left, 3 of them are still those hologram backs. So
mm,
specific cards. Um, One is the 1990 baseball hologram because it's got to have the same hologram as the baseball card
yep,
in the hockey card. And another one, and 2 of them are the comic balls, which is the Looney Tunes comic thing, which I think is a floating carrot for Bugs Bunny. It's I think it was in factory sets only. It's this weird thing,
ugh,
and I've seen
yeah,
of them, but like again, unless somebody literally knows what they have, how are you going to see that?
yep,
So it's
yep.
like,
And then we're again, where are you gonna find it? Because again, people that may have it and even list it on eBay, they don't know what they have, and they're just listing it as a regular card.
mhm,
And if they don't show a picture of the back or you can't make out from the hall, you don't know. So what are you
mhm.
gonna do? Go out and buy 2 or 300 of them in the hopes of finding one? Like
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's the problem. So out of my 9, 3 of them are those hologram variations. As stupid as that sounds, 1/3 of the ones that I need remaining on that check. I would be thrilled to scratch those off the checklist, but then that checklist gets real small. It gets really again, it's not rare, it's
Mhm.
not expensive, it's obscure. And
Yes.
that's basically where we're at here now on this. For the remainder of the 90s, there are some rare pieces in there, but this is just obscure stuff. Like it's
Mhm.
like if I find it great, but it's like, yeah, we're down to single digits in trying to get that done.
Nice.
Hopefully someday. Hopefully someday.
Yep.
But that's the player collector thing. At least it's possible. The point is, at least it's possible. It's just gonna take time
Mhm.
and a little bit of luck. That's the big thing. Now, I will show. I did mention that proof card. I found it, so I'll quickly show what I'm talking
Okay.
about in case anybody on the hockey side ever sees these. Check it out for your late '90s guys. So this is '99 2000.
Ooh.
Pacific Center Ice. So this is the proof card.
Okay.
And these are numbered. They are numbered to 10. But again, they're acetate cards. I put a white backing to make it more visible.
Okay. I was trying to figure out the card. So it is
It's
the
acetate.
pure acetate. Yeah.
Yeah. And then this is compared. There's the regular card to the left. So that's what the
Hmm.
normal card looks like. The one on the right, you can obviously see what it is. You can flip it, but it is acetate. It will have that little box with the number on the bottom, but that's the one. And my buddy
Wow.
here was one of the first commenter. He goes, 22 years later, I still haven't found a Sakic.
Wow.
And if you understand how hardcore he was in his Sakic collection, uh, his checklist was down to double digits when Sakic had thousands and thousands and thousands of cards. He had that the double digits in the 90s. He
Wow.
had
Oh,
almost everything, plus he had dealer connections, plus he has friends in the industry. If everybody and their brother is looking for you on the planet Earth and you're still
yep.
struggling to find the damn thing, it's
Yep.
hard to find.
Hmm.
And that card, as it turns out, turned up in Eastern Canada.
Really?
Of all places, it ended up over in Nova Scotia is where they found it. And then they brought it to my attention. Of all places on the planet Earth, it was in
Yep.
over in Nova Scotia. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
And it came in as part of a collection. It's part of a collection. They came in. They saw it there. Like Carlos, the way it was positioned to me, it goes, Carlos, I found something you don't have, and I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, that sounds like a challenge. Go on.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
he shows me the damn thing. I'm like, screw you.
Yeah.
That's my response. Screw you. It's like, all right, you got me because
Yeah.
it's on the checklist, but that's one of those ones I wasn't even sure it existed because I'm like, I just don't see them for anybody,
Mhm.
any of the players on the checklist. I can't find one. So there you go. I'm one of the few people who have one of the damn things. So the
Nice.
other Medano collectors are gonna have to keep looking.
Yeah.
So I got my copy. No, that's perfect. So let me touch on one or two more things. Time wise, I think we're doing well.
Yep.
But let me touch on a few other items. Let's talk about our friends at Leaf. Bring it back around to the Leaf topic.
Yep.
All right. At the National, our friend Brian Gray, before he took his sabbatical, I'm going to have another little note here that we're going to talk about here in a second.
Okay.
But as part of his thing, he did, I guess it was a live stream with Wade
Yes.
Boggs. Is that what it was? Okay.
Yep.
So as he's doing this live stream thing, he's talking to Wade Boggs. Wade Boggs is there. I think they were opening boxes of his
Yep.
product
Yeah.
and everything.
Opened up Leaf Metal, I think. One
That
card
sounds right.
per box or whatever, and he was there opening, and Wade was a guest opener and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So he was doing his whole, he's learned how to be create a whole dog and pony show. He's got to, have all the attention of the people around. But
Yep.
yourself and other members of the Boggs Trust were hanging around and Wade was speaking well of you guys. So
Mhm.
but then Brian Gray makes one of his infamous promises. He does one of his things. He goes, "Wouldn't it be great if we did this?" And
Yep.
and then so they kind of he pitched on the spot the idea of doing a special set of cards for the Boggs Trust, and I guess one for Wade as well. I think would be
Yep.
the idea.
Yep.
So have you guys heard back from any of that? Is he made good on it, or is it in progress? What's going on with that?
Yes, it is currently in the mail from Chicago.
Oh,
Rich
okay,
Davis, the Boggs father. So
sure,
what happened was Leaf came up with a initial design. At first, we actually had some input a little bit in the design because we said, hey, we want him in a Red Sox uniform.
sure.
We'd love sort of this type of thing or whatever. And they did an initial mock-up, and hey, that looks really nice. It's like gold and shiny and shimmering and all that stuff.
Now, a
I
quick
worked
question,
with,
just a quick question, just a
yeah.
question. Red Sox uniform that's been airbrushed out for the logos, or what did
No,
they do with that?
what's nice
Okay,
is it's a follow through of him.
okay,
So you see the 26,
gotcha.
and you don't see the pajama shirt without the Red
Sure,
Sox, and
sure.
his helmet is such that you don't miss. So
Okay,
they chose a really nice image
okay,
where you can see a little bit of the 26, and you can say, yeah, that's a Red Sox
okay.
uniform. Um, and so I had a fellow YouTuber, Scott Reindeer Studios, who's a
Sure.
great artist.
Yep.
We pitched a couple of thoughts with him, and he created a Boggs Trust logo for us. We presented that to Leaf. They
Mhm.
incorporated the Boggs Trust logo in the card.
Nice.
Nice big area for Wade to sign on card.
Mhm.
They created 14 cards, sent them down to Wade. Wade signed all 14. They're all serial numbered out of 14. Wade kept number one.
Sure.
My buddy Rich is getting number two. I'm getting serial number three.
Yep.
They were delivered back to Leaf, Leaf to Rich, who is distributing them out to the Boggs Trust, and This past Monday, he was at the post office mailing them out. So expect a video from me probably next week showing it off. And it is a really really cool card, shiny everything. It is
Mhm.
is really nice. And so yes, Leaf did come through. Brian did uh back up his promise of creating a Boggs Trust card. And again, it's just those 14 cards. It's unique. It's a Leaf Metal, has a
Mhm.
Leaf Metal logo in it, but it's not found in any packs. It's not going to be distributed anywhere else. It's just those 14 cards just for us Boggs Trust members. So that's going to be really cool to have in our collection.
Unique piece, the piece for people who have everything else. Nicely done,
Yep.
nicely done.
Yep.
And so what you're saying though, the other part that I heard is that you're saying that my timing on asking you this question, it could not have been more spectacular, short of you having it in hand.
Yes, I was tempted. I have, and I don't even know if you can share my one screen or not, because I have
If
a
you if,
copy of
if
the
you go to the
logo.
bottom of your StreamYard
Yeah.
and you ask to share the screen, I can. You just have to click on and select the
Okay.
right
Let
tab
me
or
pull it
whatever.
up on. I don't have. I think I only have the image of the card on my phone.
Sure.
That was. But they came out really nice. Let me, as it's loading here, and then I'll get, because I want to give props to Scott Reindeer Studios. He just
Of course.
again
Yeah.
did an amazing job with the logo. And so let's see, there we go.
Nice. All right. And I love it's got the established year and
And
everything.
that's somewhat of the image. That one's a little bit full, so you can see the bogs, but it's
Mhm.
sort of that type of swing that's actually on the card that Leaf used. So that's why you can see you don't have to worry about the B on the hat or Red Sox in the front. So he didn't really know what Leaf was picture was using, but that was a cool image there that he used. So yep, that is the official Boggs Trust logo now, and it's featured on that Leaf card.
Nice, nice. I like it. I like it. That was part of the reason I wanted to ask because now, like, I'd love to give myself credit, but it just happened that the timing works out beautifully that I can ask you the question, and
Mhm.
we're going to get resolution on that very shortly. So that's
Yep.
excellent.
Yep.
So I'm happy to hear that, and I'll be very curious. I'd love to check out that video when it comes out for sure as well. Now, are you guys going to be now that you have a logo? And listen, I've made hay with my logo. If I've taught y'all nothing else, you can make
Yep.
a lot of hay with one logo. Let me tell you.
Yep.
You're gonna have a lot of fun with it. So
Yep.
we're gonna get Boggs Trust merch now? Like you gotta get shirts or
The-
something.
I let's just say I have something in the works
Okay.
for some of the Boggs Trust members, and I may have that again. I don't think there's going to be great demand for Boggs Trust swag, but
I
I
think
am
for the
working
members, I
on.
think for the members though, it might be something that you guys can have some
Yes,
fun with
yes.
for
I
sure.
am going to do something special for the core, at least the original Boggs Trust members. We
Yeah,
usually do something for Christmas for each other every once in a while.
sure.
I'm thinking of doing something special for them, but then there may be something that would be available to the other Boggs Trust member. Who knows? We'll see.
Nice, nice. Nah, that's fair.
Yep.
All right, like, listen, if you're gonna make you a lovely logo, you
Yeah.
may as well have some fun. Look, like I said, I've made a lot of out of between the beer stein and the rest of it. It's just every
Yep.
day that goes by, I just sit there like, what other stupid thing can I come up with to
Well,
put the
my
logo on?
actually my the Rich, the Boggs father, he
Sure.
actually did take that Boggs Trust logo, and he bought a new Jeep, and so he had a car sticker,
A decal?
a decal made,
Yeah.
and he now has it slapped on the back window of his Jeep. So,
Wow. All right. I like the dedication. That
yes.
I appreciate the dedication. That's key. That's good stuff. Good to hear.
Yep.
I do feel kind of bad for you guys though. Like I think it's really cool that he could custom card. I think the logo is excellent. My compliments to Scott Reindeer Studios for putting together a very nice logo. Although I feel like if you guys kind of got robbed. If you had just it'd been a couple more weeks, it could have been a dual autograph with Boggs and The Rock. If y'all had just waited, if it had just been like the opportunity, Leaf announced they got Dwayne Johnson autographs. You kind of had a dual autograph with Dwayne Johnson
Oh,
and Boggs.
yeah. Now that would have been a nice dual auto. Yeah.
The connection's so obvious.
Well, yeah, because
So obvious.
Boggs has the wrestling connection people and stuff like that, and so yeah, you never know. That could have been a really nice dual auto. Yeah.
You know who out of I'm mostly joking with the timeliness of the
Yeah,
Rock announcement. I
yeah.
actually have some theories about that, but I'll share more about that in a Friday live
Mm.
to come shortly. However, I will make a point. Actually, what would have been really cool. Unfortunately, he passed away years ago now. What would have made actual total sense with Wade Boggs would have been Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig
Yes.
because he was in the vignettes with Kurt Hennig as part of his Mr. Perfect persona. So if he was still around,
Mhm.
that would be a dual auto that would
Well,
be
and
awesome.
I think I have the story correct that actually he saved Wade Boggs' life. They were out hunting and he got Boggs got his leg caught in some wire or something like
Okay.
that, and he would have by the time someone would have rescued him. But I think he Kurt Hennig took him on his back and took him somewhere, and he got stitched up and stuff. So yeah, there's that there's that funny commercial and stuff, but there was some
Mhm,
other things behind the scenes of them
mhm.
being really good friends and him helping Wade out in a really tough situation there. So,
Sure. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame though that yeah, it's a shame when he passed away for a lot of reasons. But that would have been like I said, that would have been a cool piece because it's a part of pop culture because
mhm,
it literally was during that moment. Wade Boggs was one of the athletes that was included in those vignettes, and they were infamous for the wrestling fan.
yeah,
I remember those vignettes; it was very fun to watch, and with the music and everything, and the whole bit.
uh,
And yeah, Wade Boggs was one of the guys who was involved in that, and it would have been a lot of fun to include that
yep,
if that had been possible. It would have been fun.
mhm,
So there's the wrestling connection that could have been. I guess The Rock would do though. Like The Rock would be okay. That'd be
yeah,
fine. You know,
yeah,
the good second, second level effort would have been
yep,
appreciated. Oh well. I guess we'll have to make do with a fancy custom Boggs Trust, custom card,
yep,
I guess. That's good stuff. That definitely would be a unique piece, no doubt, and a fun one for folks like yourselves that have put together those great collections. So I think that's really good. I'm just trying to think. There's a couple other things we could touch on, but I don't want to go too much over our time. We've still got a little bit of window here. One other thought I have, obviously you're still working on trying to build the office back up. That's a long-term project that you're working on and everything.
mhm,
You also, like I said, that we talked about already, did that video where it's a little disheartening, but at the same time it's a reality of the collecting side of things, being a
mhm,
completionist. On the heels of that, so let me ask you this, and this is something we can talk about for a couple of minutes here as we wind her down. Now that that's kind of just a reality, Leaf and other ones are going to come up with products like that. Number one, you're not going to have everything, which we already knew. But number two, you're just going to have to accept that the percentages are not going to work in your favor unless you commit all your resources to it. It's just not going to make sense for you long
yep,
term. How does that adjust your collecting? Obviously, there's still, I think you're still chasing after bugs, but it's
mhm,
maybe like in a more, targeted way, like certain things and
yeah,
something of that nature.
yep. I'm definitely gonna go for like the low hanging fruit.
Sure.
So like the base cards, some of the parallels. I'm not going to go crazy on the parallels.
Mhm.
Um, see what's out there. I think I've pretty much resigned myself that I'm not going to bust my budget and time and battling potentially other box collectors or other collectors. I stopped going after one of ones.
Sure.
I've Unless I come across something that I see it happens to be a real good bargain to buy it now, someone just lists it to maybe get rid of inventory, like out of 5 or out of 10. I'm not interested in going after those super low parallel cards anymore.
Mhm.
Um, if I find one that is autographed, I would most likely be discerning to say I only want one that's on card autograph.
Mhm.
Maybe again, being very picky and choosy as to what I pick up and how much money I spent. Because honestly, and you've been collecting for maybe as many of years as I have. Your collecting focus changes
Mhm.
and morphs and adapts and so on. That I'm really passionate right now about my vintage baseball card collection. Again,
Mhm.
not that I'm going to say, hey, I'm done with Boggs, but when you look at the allocation of my hobby budget, it used to be Boggs was here and anything else, complete sets, packs, you name everything else was down here. And it's slowly gone to where it's maybe not quite like that, but that
Mhm.
where when I put $50, $100, when I spend $200 on a card, it's on vintage rather than on Boggs.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I'll look at my checklist and say, hey, from 2022, I'm still missing this base card and this, and so I'll do a search, and I'm looking for the $5 cards, the $6 cards, the $7 cards, the $1 card that I can pick up on Bogs. Occasionally, again, maybe a relic card if it's cheap enough,
Mhm.
autograph on card. But then the rest of my hobby dollars is actually going to be going to vintage. So it's
Mhm.
still going to, my Bogs collection is still going to increase, still going to be building, not this at the pace as it used to be, and
Mhm.
not to the crazy extent as it used to be, at least, especially in terms of my hobby dollars going into it.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Seems reasonable. And you're right. I think the evolution process, I think, is a normal one. What's funny is that I joked about it. I think it might have been with yourself, but it definitely was with a couple of other folks. I kind of still have my vintage projects, but I kind of look at it as a light at the end of the tunnel kind of situation where once I get to a point that I'm satisfied that I've done those, I kind of just back away from the vintage side of the business and go focus on something. But I also have multiple player collections now. So my distribution has changed where Medano is still my primary concern,
Hmm.
but there'll be stretches of time where I just don't see. That's why I focused in on keyed in on that point about the playing days and some of the '90s stuff. Uh, it's not that there isn't stuff. I could literally go on eBay right now and hit a buy it now 300 times and find a lot that would I could have a procession of mail. That would not
Yep.
be a problem. But it's
Yep.
like, okay, but then that money is not available for if one of the key pieces comes in or one of the big
Hmm.
ones or
Yep.
um so I think it's kind of holding back a little, waiting and just looking for cool stuff, stuff that I think is interesting or that
Yep.
is fun to add to that. So I think that's a big piece of the evolution that you're discussing. Now, actually, I'll touch on this quickly since you brought it up with the vintage. You did the update with Mike on the index that you've been working
Yes.
on. Um, I didn't get a chance to sit down and watch it yet, but I remember that you guys had done it months ago, and then you did your update recently.
Hmm.
Can you tell me high level any surprising conclusions or anything that you caught in the data that you were able to go taking a look at it? You obviously looked at it with graphical, you looked at charts and everything.
Yep.
Did you
Yep.
learn anything that maybe surprised you?
I wouldn't say learn anything that surprised us. I think what it did was further confirm
Mhm.
what we had been suspecting
Mhm.
that has been happening in the vintage market is that there's still continuing softening of prices. It's not crashing. Vintage
Mhm.
market is not crashing yet. We're seeing and I think I termed it during that video where I said it's vintage is still, I think, trying to find that new baseline or that new bottom. You
Mhm.
had the pre-COVID, then you had the run-up at COVID, then you had some correction, and now we're in that period where um, macroeconomic forces are also at
Mhm.
hand. You have people saying, even on channels I've been hearing it, yeah, I haven't been buying as much and this and that, whether it's directly related to the economy or burnout or this or whatever.
Mhm.
The national had a record attendance, so on one hand, hey, it's the sports card market is booming and stuff. There's a lot of things going on, but if you look at the chart, it's not quite leveled out over the last year and a half. There's still a little bit of depression or push down on
Mhm.
prices. I think that's going to continue. Again, I don't want this to sound as like an investment type thing or whatever, but I would think like probably like for the next year, we're still going to be in that area where you can find some bargains. Let's just say out there, where if you're patient, you can spend your hobby dollars wisely, and pick up some nice cards. It's still looking for that baseline before I think, as we've seen with vintage generally, the prices will start their slow ascension that we saw before COVID. COVID was nice and steady over time. Generally speaking, vintage cards would slightly go up in price. It'd get a little bit more expensive, but nothing
Yeah.
crazy. And
Pre-COVID, you mean?
pre-COVID, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the market is trying to find that equilibrium again to start that slow and steady. Hey, this is vintage. Nothing's too exciting about vintage, but there's still a demand for vintage, and so over time you're going to get maybe some price increases. We're not there yet. At least that's what I've seen. But it was more of a confirmation of what we thought was happening over the last, say, year, and the
Mhm.
data is now showing it.
Sure. No, makes sense. No, I appreciate you giving us a breakdown and synopsis. What I got out of that, to be honest with you, and I appreciate your restraint and not just flat out saying it. What I got out of that is 88 Don Russ, Greg Jeffries, and 91 Upper Deck Todd Van Poppel to the moon.
Yeah.
That's what I got out of that.
Yeah.
I think now's the time, my friends. This we've waited more than 30 years. The time has come. In 1991 wasn't the time, but
Yep.
31 years on, 32 years on.
Mhm.
91 Todd Van Poppel, 88 Greg Jeffries. The time is nigh.
Yep. Yep. A renaissance of come and go rookie cards.
Look, I nothing would make me happier, John. I don't, John. One of my favorite things about this hobby, and I've tried to explain this in a variety of different ways, short of just saying it. But Easter egg for folks that have stuck around to the end of this. I don't care. I collect because it's fun for me, and and it amuses me, and I enjoy it, and I love having these conversations, and these things are
Mhm.
fun for me. But when it comes to the economic status of the hobby, I don't care. If all the card manufacturers go out of business, I don't care. If the
Yep.
Fanatics overlords go out of business, well, before they cash the check for me, I need the check first. But as long as the check clears, I don't care.
Yep.
That's part of the reason that I take the approach I do to a lot of the things that happen. It's like I understand what you're saying, but how does that affect the price of me buying a Mike Badano, or how does that
Mhm.
affect my latest Brett Favre acquisition? Like, if you're telling me I can get it cheaper, then it sounds sweet, great,
Yep.
phenomenal, sensational. Outside of that, I don't care.
Mhm.
It's not that it's not important. It's not that it's not, good or bad, but I don't care. I don't have to either.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for us, it's just, I'm a number cruncher guy. I find it interesting. Again,
Sure.
do I care if, well, the only extent that I care if vintage prices in general are going up or down is
Yeah.
basically how it affects my wallet and what cards I can afford to buy.
Sure.
That's the only extent, whether it's good or bad for the hobby or indifferent. Um, as you said, if the current card companies stop producing cards next year, there's
Mhm.
always going to be vintage. There's always going to be vintage out there. They're already done. They're already produced. They're already out there.
Yeah.
They're still there to be collected, and there's still going to be people, even if modern cards go away. There's still going to be people that are interested in acquiring vintage cards. And so the only thing that all of that means to me, all that data, all the where's things going and have been, is all right. If I'm looking to buy a 61 Hank Aaron card toward my run, what is that going to cost me?
Mhm.
Is it going to cost me more tomorrow or less tomorrow? And if it's less tomorrow, hey, wonderful, because I can stretch my hobby dollars. If it costs more tomorrow, I may have to look at a lower graded copy to be able to
Mhm.
stretch my hobby dollars. That's to the extent that I care.
Mhm.
Is just what can I buy for the dollars I have?
Yeah. It's just, but it comes down in a situation like that. It comes down to the individual collector. At our base level, it is not our concern what the big institutions are doing.
Yeah.
If they print too much, if they print too little, if people are happy, people are unhappy, the general sentiment. It's interesting to note. It's
Mhm.
interesting, like, to observe that. So that's why I say, like, it's not that I'm completely ignorant of it, but at the same time, I can sit back and watch it from a distance. And from this vantage
Mhm.
point, I get a chance to observe. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I'm still gonna put the cards in the Z folio and do okay. If
Business
you
as
guys say
usual
so.
for you. It's just yeah. It's yeah.
Yeah, and I joke with John. So this one is actually holds a bunch of Carlos Delgado, and I was having a quick chat with John about Carlos Delgado. But I laughed because when I was going through it, I was leafing through it the other day, and there's nice stuff in here. Like, I've got a bunch of the '90s refractors and atomic
Mm,
refractors, all kinds of, because it's cheap enough that I was able to get it really cheap. But
mhm.
then as I started going, because it had been a while, so kind of to John's point, it's a great opportunity sometimes to go back through your collection already that you've got and go take a look and see if maybe you catch something that maybe you forgot you had. And in this group, because here's some of the Mets stuff. We joked about the Mets thing, some of the refractors there for those.
Yep.
But in this, I actually have a couple of essential credentials. So if any of you 90s and
Right.
early 2000s people know, there's one of them in here. Yeah, here we go. This one over here. So I'll zoom in here in a minute. But this is from early 2000, I want to say 2004. And you know how they've got the different essential credentials, the different types? Okay,
Mhm.
I'll see if I can show it to you in a way that you can actually see it. So that Delgado there.
Yes.
It's a little hard to tell. That's out of 32.
Wow.
I got it just sitting in the sitting in the C folio. It's like,
Yeah.
did I mention I don't care?
Yeah.
Did I mention that? Whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, but it's but hey, listen. If they ever listen to my arguments and he goes to the Hall of Fame, well then probably I'll go get it graded and it'll pay for the rest of my medallions. Like, it'll be good.
Right.
It's like, yeah, amazing. Here we go.
Yep.
Sounds great. In the meantime, it stays in the C folio just because I can, for
Yep.
no other reason. Like, I drove my buddy crazy because in my Jamie Benn, one of my other stars guys, I have PMGs in the Z folio for that one,
Mm.
and he's like, "Really?" And it's like, "Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
because I can,
Yeah.
just because I can." Some of them I paid less than $20 for. What do you offer? Like, if you pay under $20, you expect me to treat it like it's precious? It's like it
Yeah.
cost me $18. I'm
Yeah.
putting in the Z folio if I feel like it. What are we talking about here?
Yep.
It's like, calm down, enjoy your cards. That's my message to you. Calm down and enjoy your cards.
Yeah. Yeah. We
Not
should
that serious.
again. Everyone and a lot of people say it on different channels. Like, obviously collect what you want. Just enjoy your collection. Whether you, not to get off on a whole nother topic here, whether you grade your cards, whether you don't grade your cards, whether you stick them in 9 pocket sleeves, whether you stick them in a 5,000 card box, whether you do this or do that with them, as long as you enjoy them, that's the, do whatever. I mean, it's they're your cards, they're your collection.
Mm.
Use them as bookmarks. I don't. It's
I only do that with Tom Brady rookies.
yeah.
Things of no value.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
But
it's just
there's no right or wrong way for someone to collect sports cards or
yeah,
even store the cards or do whatever. So
yeah. Well, like I said, I showed that because that's kind of an extreme example. But at the same time, like they're not getting harmed. They go on the shelf. They get put in there, and they don't move. They don't shuffle around. I just put it on the shelf, and I can flip through it when I want to. But if you're being reckless with them, then fine. You want to
yeah,
treat the Z photo like a frisbee and chuck that around. Well, then we might have a discussion. But
yeah,
outside of that, whatever. Don't take it that seriously. It's supposed to be fun.
yeah.
But anyway, so this was a lot of fun, John. Thank you for joining me. I
I
appreciate it.
appreciate coming on again.
Absolutely. We will have another part 3 at some point. I'm sure we can come up with something. Like we'll do another deep dive into the player collecting. By that point, you may have moved on to the 88 Donruss Greg Jeffries following my tip. The 91 Todd Van Poppels, and that may become part of the index because these are the legendary cards of the hobby.
I may have to expand my index to the 1980s and obviously feature some of those key rookie cards from the 80s.
I assure you that if we go back to Beckett magazines of the 80s, there's plenty of Greg Jeffries in there.
Oh yeah.
Plenty. So it's like, as far as I'm concerned, that's a key. That's a grail. Hashtag
Yep.
grail. Key card. Before we take off though, one last question I'll give you, and I'll leave you on this one. So you've put more of an emphasis on the vintage side of things. That's been a focus of yours. You've got your 100 cards for $100,000. That project that you're still working on.
Mhm.
If you were going to target anything, is there anything you have your eye out for? Anything in particular you're targeting, or is it just whatever catches your eye?
Oh, see, yeah, right. Since the national, I found myself in a bit of a rut. One, because of, and I've mentioned on my channel, getting into the new house and all that stuff's taken
Sure.
away some of my hobby dollars. And I'm now saying, hey, okay, now I got some more money, and I'm like, okay, so what should I focus on? And I'm running into one of those foggy areas because there's so much out there still that I don't have, and I've now come down to just like some random pickups. Like I'll do a
Mm.
search of cards, say from the 50s or 60s that are ending fairly soon in a certain price range, and whatever catches my eye, I'm like, oh, that's nice. In fact, that's how I came up with this one here.
Yeah, 58
And I
Topps
saw the
Whitey Ford.
listing and PSA 4, and it was an auction. Got it, looked at the the comps, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, I can spend that amount of money right now. Got it for less than what I thought I'd have to, and picked up a really cool 58. Do I want to start a 58 run? Well, no, because I started looking at the cards, and even in fours, like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't have the budget for that right now. So I'm in a random state of
Mm.
acquisition. I always would like to work on that 100 cards for $100,000 list.
Mhm.
But we're talking about trying to find a Schmidt rookie, a bench rookie, a Reggie Jackson rookie. That's the
Sure.
low hanging fruit right now. Now we're
Mm,
getting into some mantles and some earlier errands and some other key rookie Hall of Fame rookie cards. And so my days of the low hanging fruit of over under $100 I can pick up are gone. So
mm,
because I'm almost halfway through, I'm at card number 45, so I'm
right.
almost halfway through there, and it's getting more and more expensive as I pick more up. Um, Other than that, maybe some player runs. I have a decent number of Jim Palmers. The only problem with Palmer is that he goes past 1980. So now I'm looking at, because I did it with Seaver,
Mhm,
went up to his 84, 80, no, I'm sorry, his 87.
mhm.
Um, with Palmer, I think he's up to 86 or something like this. So now I'm looking for graded cards from a 1986 Topps. I'm like, okay, well, that's a little bit less appealing, but that would
Mm.
involve like for the Jim Palmer playing run. So yeah, I I I don't have too many focuses right now or cards that I'm targeting. It's that vague area right now for me.
Work in progress. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. Well, well, I think we discussed that the general theme discussion that we've had is that there are seasons for everything, and
Yep.
you just gotta ride the waves of the different seasons that you're in, and wind up where you wind up.
Yep.
As long as you progress along, and I think as long as I feel like there's progression, I'm good with whatever season I happen to be in.
Yeah.
Works very nicely. Perfect.
Yep.
So you can get more insights and things like that. Check out John at Wade Boggs Fan. I will include a link to his channel in the description as promised earlier. And now that we know the Boggs Trust card is coming, video forthcoming on that.
Should be next week. I plan on doing a video next week. So, yep.
Perfect. And then also we've got the show. Uh, I always forget the name. I get the name wrong. Give it to me.
Two guys, one hobby. And
Perfect. That's
that's a collaboration with myself and Dawn's Field of Dream Cards. In fact, we're going to have an episode that some of you may really enjoy this coming Sunday. We'll probably post in the morning, on Sunday morning, a very not heated, a very good debate back and forth on collecting graded or ungraded cards. And we have Jake, Legends Never Die, as our guest. And it was a really nice hour long conversation. I think those who would be interested in learning more about both sides of that issue. And we agreed on a lot of things, but disagreed on a few.
mm,
It was really good conversation. So I think yeah, everyone would enjoy it. So
perfect. So you can check that out on the description of the channel. Thank you again to John for joining me. Had a lot of fun having a conversation and
my
deep
pleasure.
diving into the player collection topic because we can certainly do that. It's a thing we can definitely do. And now you all learned about the Z Folios can hold all kinds of things. Essential
Yeah.
credentials, PMGs, all kinds of crazy mirror golds, all kinds of crazy stuff you can put in there. No problem.
Yep.
Bottom line, do what you want, enjoy your hobby, have fun with it. It's meant to be fun.
Yep.
So more videos coming up on the channel. Live streams Fridays 8 p.m. Eastern time. Generally speaking, in a couple of weeks when we get to the expo, I will remind everybody when we get closer to it, there will likely be a bonus stream. So that will be forthcoming. And if I'm able to, then we'll try to have a Friday live, but it may be later and it may be more truncated. So fair warning on that. But one way or the other, there'll be a live stream on there. Got to keep the streak going. Can't break it yet. So we'll definitely get on that, but we'll have some fun with it. All right. So for John and myself, thank you all for checking this one out, and we will catch you in the next one.